Imagine waking up after a blizzard, stepping outside to clear your driveway, and hurling a snowball onto your neighbor's land as a friendly prank. But what if that small insult unleashed a fury no one saw coming? On February 1st, 2021, in Plains Township, Pennsylvania, that prank spiraled into a brutal execution. James and Lisa Goy were shot, once again, until bullets emptied by their neighbor, Navy veteran Jeffrey Spaide. He then retreated indoors, returned with a rifle, and returned fire. When police arrived, Spaide was found dead by his own hand. This is a jaw-dropping story of how a winter dispute turned into a tragedy that shattered a community. Early in the morning, Plains Township blanketed under 18 to 30 inches of snow. Side streets quiet, only the sound of shovels, distant cars. Homes sleepily emerging into daylight. James Goy, 50, and his wife Lisa, 48, are described by neighbors as generous, vocal, and involved, a married couple raising a 15-year-old autistic son. Across the street lived Jeffrey Spaide, age 47, a decorated Navy veteran turned environmental engineer, private and respected for his discipline and academic achievements. Recent memory preserved months of tension. The Goys were known for shoveling snow from their driveway and then dumping it across Spaide's walkway. One neighbor said tension simmered over weekends prior, but nothing violent, until Saturday, January 30th, 2021. Witnesses described verbal insults thrown like sharp ice. Neither side called the cops. Video surveillance captured one exchange. James hurling a snow shovel at Spaide's feet, while shouts of "You're a pussy" echoed. Spaide walked away inside, slamming his door. As winter storms piled snow, the silence of houses turned brittle. But no one expected a neighborhood blanketed in 2 feet of snow. Neighbors clearing driveways and quietly inciting escalating hostility. Behind a curtain of silence, anger boils. One wrong throw of snow turns a community fence into frontline territory. Words cut deeper than cold air. And one man snaps, pulling a gun from inside his house. This is how a morning dispute about snow took a chilling turn. This is Plains Township, and this is what really happened. The morning of February 1st, 2021 was quiet, eerily so. Plains Township, Luzerne County, lay beneath a heavy blanket of snow. Streets were slick and still. Across West Berg Street, neighbors stirred indoors. Shovels creaked, gloves snapped, breaths froze in the cold Pennsylvania air. A winter storm had dropped upwards of 2 feet of snow that weekend, grinding normal life to a halt. Cars were frozen in driveways. Noises echoed over I-C 8:09 a.m. James and Lisa Goy emerged from their modest home across from Spaide's. 50 and 48 respectively. The husband and wife duo bundled up and began shoveling their driveway. Then James swept the final arc of snow across the street onto Jeffrey Spaide's cleared walkway. Spark dispute. Neighbors later told police this was not the first time the Goys had done this. There had been ongoing snow-throwing disputes months before, but on this stormy Monday morning, tensions ignited. Jeffrey Spaide, 47, then a decorated Navy veteran and environmental engineer, appeared at his front door, calm, composed, yet visibly irritated. He asked them, politely at first, to stop clearing snow onto his property. James, already heated, stepped forward. He lifted the snow shovel and with an angry shove thrust it toward Spaide's feet. Then both men exchanged expletives. Washington-style insults, vulgarities repeated between them. Pussy, scum, nickname shaming. Spaide tried to retreat, but the Goys followed, waving their arms, shouting across the snowy road. The confrontation grew loud, intense. James cocked a fist and swaggered forward. Then Spaide turned and went back into his home. People watching through windows did not call police. So common, so neighbors only. Seconds before fire, witnesses later described in shocking detail what followed. Spaide reemerged seconds later, walking slowly toward them, holding a handgun, not waving it, but carrying it. The Goys saw it immediately but did not back down. James apparently shouted, "Put that down!" He raised an arm in defiance. Spaide stood motionless for a moment, then fired. Several rounds. James was hit first, staggering backward. Lisa screamed at him to stay away, curse him, then shouted at Spaide, "You scumbag!" But the shots continued. Spaide paused, then walked back inside his house. Moments later returned with a rifle, AR-style weapon. Investigators later confirmed he recharged and returned to continue firing at their motionless bodies. Shooter's voice heard once more. Many recall him saying, "You should have kept your F***ing mouth shut." Another neighbor said they counted at least 12 shots. James Goy attempted to flee toward his front door, calling for help, but collapsed beside his car. Lisa crumpled near the porch. Both shot multiple times, both dead within moments. Instant panic. Some neighbors dialed 911, reporting gunshots, then seeing bodies on the road. One neighbor described standing in his driveway, hearing the aggressive words, then trembling as Spaide fired 8 to 12 shots. Onlookers froze in the snow. No one dared intervene. It only took seconds, but terror lingered long after. As Spaide retreated inside, slamming the door, he left behind 2 tragic figures on a snowy street. The community would soon learn this was not an isolated burst of violence, but the devastating result of months of antagonism and silence. Imagine sirens slicing through thick winter air, a neighbor's frantic 911 call, and as officers knock on one front door, a single gunshot answers, even before they can step inside. In Plains Township, this was no cold night's echo. It was the sound of a tragedy fully realized. Shortly after 9 a.m., multiple 911 calls flooded into the Plains Township dispatch center. Reporters later quoted neighbors saying they had seen a man standing near his driveway with a firearm, firing shots at a couple lying in the street. One neighbor, visibly shaking through tears, told the operator, "There's bodies, blood, he's still shooting." Officers from Plains Township Police and Luzerne County Sheriff units raced along snow-packed roads. As they approached the scene on West Berg Street, the silence of falling snow contrasted with the flashing red and blue lights. A.T. the Goy residence. They found James Goy and Lisa Goy lying motionless in the street. James's body was near the middle of the road, clothing splattered with snow-dense blood. Lisa lay collapsed between 2 cars. Both had been shot multiple times at close range. There was no sign of struggle around their bodies. Their wallets, phones, and valuables remained in their pockets. It was clear this was not a robbery, but a deliberate act of violence. Together with forensic teams, officers began securing shell casings, both from a handgun and an AR-style rifle, rounds scattered over the snowy pavement. Every step near the bodies left footprints in sloughing red snow. With neighbor guidance, officers marched to the house directly across the street. As they knocked on the front door, a single gunshot rang out. Inside, if you have not already subscribed to our channel, please subscribe, comment, share, and also turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any of our videos. The officers froze momentarily. Standing just yards from the entry, they felt the snow crunch beneath their boots and the tension in their own breath. Once inside, they discovered Jeffrey Spaide, 47. He had died of a self-inflicted gunshot wound, reportedly inside a second rifle's blast radius. Local authorities confirmed his identity immediately. The investigation would later note his military and academic background, but none of that made sense amid the carnage of a snowy swept street. In a joint statement, Luzerne County DA Stephanie Salavanis and Plains Township Chief Dale Binker explained, on February 1st, 2021, James and Lisa Goy, husband and wife, were shot and killed by their neighbor Jefferson Spaide following an argument over snow removal. Mr. Spaide then took his own life as officers approached his residence. They confirmed previous conflicts, particularly over snow disposal across property lines. Spaide had asked the Goys to stop, but the confrontation devolved quickly. He retrieved a handgun, shot both neighbors, then went inside to arm himself with an AR-style rifle for more shots. Neighbors described the scene as surreal. Tyler Fish, a man who had recently moved in, told reporters, "It's pretty scary coming home to this. It's an odd feeling for everyone. It's a quiet street. We never had any problems here." Another neighbor recounted property disputes in prior months, saying the Goys often shoveled onto Spaide's clear path, sparking repeated tensions. Online forums later exploded. On Reddit, users called the Goys neighborhood bullies, who often provoked Spaide and others. Posters noted that Spaide had previously lost his wife, implying the Goys' callous remarks may have broken something in him. Turn Zero Search 11, but other commenters warned, "You never know what someone's carrying behind a cold stare." Authorities confirmed that James and Lisa's 15-year-old autistic son was inside the house during the shooting. He emerged uninjured. His grandparents assumed guardianship after the tragedy. Local organizations organized fundraisers, flowers, memorials, a bench installed in the town center bearing a plaque that read, "In memory of James and Lisa Goy, torn from us by winter's fury. May their son feel our care always." Churches and school counselors rallied to support grieving neighbors, offering therapy sessions for residents still rattled by the violence. Please comment, subscribe, and share to your loved ones, and also turn on your notification bell on so you don't miss any of our videos. Investigators recovered multiple firearms, the handgun and a rifle used against the Goys, and the final weapon Spaide used on himself. They gathered neighbor statements, security camera footage, and weapon ballistics. Everything aligned. The argument over snow throw, Spaide's temporary retreat, retrieval of weapons, his return and execution-like pattern, all confirmed by surveillance footage. Medical examiner reports later confirmed Lisa had received multiple rounds. Witnesses reported 8 to 12 shots. James was shot while attempting to flee toward his front door. Officials described Spaide as not known to police, no prior criminal history. His hostility had intensified in the weeks before, though no one anticipated lethal violence. After the dust settled, local leaders urged residents to report neighbor disputes before escalation. The DA said, "A snow dispute should never end in death. We must find ways to mediate conflict before it becomes tragedy." Armchair critics later said the Goys needed to apologize. Others said Spaide had snapped under long-term provocation. The narrative wasn't black and white. Community fracture created a lethal fog. What drives a man to murder his neighbors over snow? How does a simmering dispute turn into a deadly execution, complete with 2 firearms and dozens of bullets? In Chapter 4, we peel back the layers, the motive, investigation, and official findings that expose how an argument over snow disposal spiraled into a triple tragedy on a peaceful suburban street. Following initial reports, Luzerne County's District Attorney Stephanie Salavanis confirmed that ongoing disputes between James and Lisa Goy and their neighbor Jeffrey Spaide existed, particularly after storms when snow was tossed across property lines. Although neighbors reported confrontations over snow in previous weeks, no criminal charges or police intervention had occurred prior to February 1st. On that morning, Spaide asked the couple to stop. Anger flared quickly, and correlations between the taunts, the snow shoveling behavior, and the violent escalation became clear as investigators arrived on scene. They treated it as a triple criminal incident, a double homicide followed by apparent suicide. Officers secured the area, collecting between 15 to 20 spent shell casings, both from a handgun and an AR-style rifle. Both weapons were recovered inside Spaide's home. The coroner and DA concluded that Spaide had first fired a handgun at the Goys, emptied it, then gone inside to retrieve a rifle to continue shooting. Investigators reviewed surveillance footage from nearby homes, confirming witness statements that Spaide retrieved the firearms after retreating indoors. Furthermore, ballistics testing matched shell casings to the weapons seized. Investigators confirmed James and Lisa had been shot multiple times at close range, and official statements. In a joint statement, DA Salavanis and Police Chief Dale Binker explained, "We believe Spaide retrieved one weapon from inside his home, fired several rounds, returned to retrieve a second weapon, and executed the victims." As officers approached to make an arrest, a single gunshot was heard inside. Spaide had taken his own life. They clarified that the conflict over snow disposal exacerbated an existing feud, which escalated when James allegedly threw a shovel-like tool at Spaide, and made obscene gestures. Turn 0, search 1, turn 0, search 6. Police had no prior calls or documentation of threats or criminal behavior involving Spaide. Even though the disputes had been ongoing, authorities ruled motive was retaliation and perceived disrespect. Witnesses described Spaide as reserved, disciplined, and typically calm. The Goys were described as more combative and brash. Sometimes taunting local residents, .1 resident noted Spaide had been prevented from expressing frustration legally because no formal complaints had ever been filed. This left grudges unresolved. Unseen until they turned fatal. Weapon chain of custody established. Handgun and rifle recovered from inside Spaide's home. Shell casings collected across the street, matching both weapons. Visual surveillance confirmed timeline of events. Autopsy reports confirmed multiple entry wounds. Both Goys died instantly. No signs of forced entry or robbery. Valuables intact. IN closing comments. DA Salavanis urged local residents to be proactive in neighbor disputes. A snow dispute should never end with bullets flying. If tensions are high, report it, because silence can kill. Chief Binker echoed this sentiment, stressing the absence of any previous criminal record for Spaide. He lived alone. He rarely engaged. But minors-neighbor conflict, if unresolved, can go dangerously unchecked. This crime wasn't spontaneous madness. It was escalation compounded by distance, failure to de-escalate, and unvoiced grievances. In small towns, where everyone knows each other, small conflicts matter. Both Goys left behind a 15-year-old autistic son, now living with grandparents. Their sudden absence rippled through schools, churches, and workplaces. Local grief counselors describe Plains Township as shell-shocked. A community forced to confront how neighborly civility masked simmering RA, quiet Pennsylvania street, lost its heartbeat overnight. Homes covered in snow. Children's laughter replaced with grief. For a single family, life changed forever. 2 parents gone, leaving a special needs teenager behind. In Chapter 5, we explore the aftermath of the tragedy. The ripple effects on neighbors, the community's collective trauma, and how a frozen winter morning turned into grief that refuses to thaw. Once news spread, Plains Township was enveloped in a stunned silence. Residents emerged from their homes to see police and medical personnel still on Westburg Street. A sense of disbelief hung in the air as neighbors tried to process what had unfolded during the quiet snowfall. At the Goy residence, paramedics had long left, but grief remained physical. Their teenage autistic son sat quietly in shock. Within hours, his grandparents came to retrieve him. His world collapsed with the loss of both parents. Local church groups organized candles and written messages outside the Goy home. One neighbor, Tyler Fish, who had recently moved onto the street, expressed the sentiment felt by many. It's pretty scary coming home to this. It's an odd feeling. We never had any problems here. Therapists and school counselors were mobilized to support residents, especially children who witnessed or heard the shootings. Many spoke of sleepless nights, flashbacks, and the eerie feeling that the snow-covered street had been stained forever. As national media took notice, communities across Pennsylvania wrestled with shock and confusion. Headlines bluntly read, "Neighbors dead after snow shoveling dispute," painting a chilling picture of winter rage turning murderous. Online, Reddit discussions divided opinion. Some posters criticized the Goys for provoking Spaide. Others condemned Spaide's actions as the ultimate failure of neighborly civility. But nearly everyone asked the same question. Could this have been prevented? Luzerne County DA Stephanie Salavanis and Police Chief Dale Binker formally closed the investigation soon after the deaths. They cited the self-inflicted wound as conclusive. There was no foul play beyond the murders. A combined total of 15 to 20 shell casings had been recovered, ensuring ballistic clarity. A unanimous finding, murder-suicide. Crucially, authorities confirmed no prior criminal history or police reports involving Spaide, making the tragic escalation all the more unpredictable. Broken heart legacy of the Goy family. James and Lisa left behind a 15-year-old son with autism, vulnerable and suddenly orphaned. Reports confirmed he was taken in by grandparents shortly after shooting. Community efforts included donations to a trust fund, counseling support, and memorial bench installed at a nearby park and grave with, in memory of James and Lisa Goy, torn from us by winter's fury. May their son feel our care always. Spaide had been described as quiet, disciplined, a naval veteran with an engineering background. Yet monthly tensions with the Goys had built into unresolved conflict. When he took up arms, there were no obvious warning signs of law enforcement. No court records, no prior charges. Turn 0 Search 16, Turn 0 Search 8. Experts have since used this case to discuss how everyday grievances can fester into violence, especially when one side feels unheard and unable to resolve the dispute legally. With the investigation closed and grief still fresh, Plains Township reframed its approach to neighbor disputes. Leaders issued warnings that small issues, particularly during times of stress like snowstorms, should never be dismissed. But the haunting question remains: how many conflicts simmer in silence until they break? When a snow dispute ends in murder, what does it mean for a community? How could a decorated veteran break so completely and take two lives with him? This final chapter unpacks the psychological and societal faults exposed by this tragedy. We explore how neighborly friction became lethal, how routine grievance metastasized into violence, and what we can all learn to prevent the next frozen line from becoming a breaking point. Brain examining the roots, conflict and escalation. The Goy Spaide case is a textbook example of interpersonal conflict, precipitated homicide-suicide. Experts note that tension over perceived disrespect can escalate quickly, especially when one party feels provoked and powerless. Turn 0 Search 6, Spaide's repeated frustrations over the snow dumping and insults unleashed a lethal reaction. His background as a decorated Navy veteran and environmental engineer speaks to discipline, but also suggests possible internal pressure. Colleagues saw precision. Neighbors witnessed isolation. The absence of earlier conflict reporting allowed resentment to fester unseen. Turn 0 Search 5. Psychologists point to two warning patterns: tit-for-tat escalation, small provocations leading to retaliation, silence grievance. When neither side seeks mediation, the tension grows in secrecy. This case reflects broader trends. Other documented disputes about fences, parking, noise, or yard decor have erupted into violence. Commentators call these retaliatory neighbor homicides. In each, the trigger, perceived crossing of boundaries real or imagined. Plains Township is far from unique. The pandemic, extreme weather, and economic stress have fueled similarly petty conflicts into lethal encounters nationwide. James and Lisa Goy are more than headlines. Their 15-year-old son survived, but lost both parents. The community and social services scrambled to support him and extended family. Residents report ongoing trauma, especially children who heard gunfire. Churches and nonprofits form support groups. But grief has no timetable. Some neighbors say watching a home now feels haunted. Others avoid the street entirely. The bench placed near their home is a daily reminder of loss. The psychological toll extended beyond neighbors. First responders reported elevated stress. Local schools held grief counselors. Mental health professionals post-event advised communities to recognize lingering fear. Authorities now advise, if a neighbor feels repeatedly disrespected, call local police. Don't wait until tensions flash over. What if someone had intervened? What if Spaide had sought help or the Goys apologized? Would words have saved lives? The answer isn't simple. But one thing stands clear. Civilized communities depend on addressing small wounds before they become deadly. In a neighborhood, your snowfall isn't just weather, it's a boundary. How you cross it matters. The tragedy reminds us, ordinary people can become killers when pain, pride, and isolation converge. It shows that warning signs, however small, should not be ignored. And it demonstrates how silence in the face of conflict can cost lives. Bouquet in memory. James and Lisa Goy, cherished in life, missed in absence. Their quiet street now bears the weight of snow and sorrow. Their son carries forward their legacy, supported by a community that learned too late but will not forget. This wasn't a movie. It wasn't fiction. It happened in broad daylight, in a quiet neighborhood, over something as simple as snow. If the story chilled you, if it made you rethink how well you know the people next door, then this is a channel for you. We cover the true stories the world tries to forget, the ones hiding behind fences, hedges, and smiles. So hit subscribe, tap that notification bell, and join our growing community of crime story seekers. Drop a comment. Have you ever had a neighbor dispute that almost went too far? Would you have seen the warning signs before it was too late? Your thoughts might just help someone else.